You know, I should probably put something up on the screen. Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Grace and today we are finally on to part 2 of my beginner's guide to Danmei. So for those of you real quick, I highly recommend watching my beginner's guide to Danmei part 1, introducing the basic concepts of Danmei, which is Chinese BL novels, as well as some common tropes that are found not just in Danmei novels but in most Chinese fantasy stories such as wuxia or xianxia novels. We have a lot of new Danmei that came out, particularly from 7 Seas since I made that video, particularly the fantasy ones, but we also have a couple of Danmei works that aren't in the fantasy genre. They are more in the sci-fi, thriller, contemporary genre, as well as some updates on the Danmei community at large, particularly how censorship has still gotten really bad to the point where a motorcycle is homophobic. As well as some updates on the Chinese BL community, particularly in China, where censorship has gotten really bad to the point of Danmei authors getting arrested, feeling silenced. As much as that sucks, the best that we can do is to continue to support them from where we can. So let's just get right into it. The thing is that what inspired me to do this video was particularly I recently finished the novel, the first volume, The Disabled Tyrant's Beloved Pet Fish. The premise, real quick, if you haven't watched me talk about it in a different video, is that there's this young man named Li Yu, and he is transmigrated into the world of a novel that he was reading, but in the form of a carp, a fish. And he is urged by the system to get along with the tyrant prince, who will one day grow up to be a tyrant king and is a major character in the novel that he was reading. And I realized that the trope, I think, of the system is becoming very more common nowadays, particularly not just in Chinese Danmei and fantasy novels, but also with other East Asian works in particularly stemming from the isekai genre. But I think isekai is more well known because it's started like way ages ago, like not just with Sword Art Online, but even farther than that, like with Inuyasha, Rayearth, and I'm pretty sure even farther than that. But what we know as portal fantasy or isekai is commonly known as transmigration in Chinese novels, and even I think with Korean novels as well, because isekai is a Japanese word. So the word transmigration pretty much spells it all out. Trans is gender. No, trans is the prefix for change and migration is to travel. So transmigration is traveling to another world. Particularly we see it commonly with, I think with Japanese works, we see it a lot with worlds of video games, again Sword Art Online, Log Horizon. It's also popped up for otome games like the Villainess stories, or less so I feel like with novels, but novels are a big thing in the Chinese stories. Particularly the most famous one out of all the Danmei novels is the Scum Villain self-saving system, one of the most popular ones, one of the first that came out. Particularly like the main character has like some sort of feeling, usually of hatred, sometimes like it's their favorite novel. But in the Scum Villain self-saving system, that main character, Shen Qingqiu, hated the novel that he was reading. He called it trash, comments on every chapter saying like, this author is trash, but he chokes on a dumpling as he's reading it and then falls over and dies and wakes up in the world of the novel that he hates so much as the villain, as well as, spoiler alert for Scum Villain, but it's been out for so long now, the author of the work itself also I think like tripped and electrocuted and died while writing it or something, and also is transported into the world of the novel. So he has a different relationship with the world as than the main character does, which is so funny. I feel like with Korea though, now that I think about it, I actually don't know a lot of transmigration novels. Whoops. I think they do have a couple of villainess ones. Actually, I'm a total liar. I don't think I know any Korean transmigration stories. Please comment down below if you know a Korean transmigration story, because like the ones that I'm thinking about, they do have video game elements, but they are not technically portal fantasies, not technically transmigration stories. I was thinking about, I recently did a video, as the time of me recording this, I'm still editing, but I plan to do a video on Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint. That's not technically a video game isekai transmigration story. I mean, maybe technically it is, but then it's like, maybe this is something I'll learn later, but was Kim Dokja and the world transported into the world, or did the world come onto him? Darn, I actually don't know. But then solo leveling as well. Does death count as transmigration? Technically no, because he never mind. That has video game elements, but is not technically a isekai story. Oh my god, I'm a total liar. So that's the genre or the tropes of transmigration, but the trope of the system I feel like is still particularly interesting because I feel like it can be quite difficult to juggle. But basically the system trope is that, like, for example, in the case of Disabled Tyrant, so Li Yu is transported into the world of the novel. He has some idea of how the story of the novel goes, but what he's encouraged to do, he's given quests by this mysterious system that kind of gives him stats and abilities and levels up. Like, for example, he is a carp, but he levels up, so to speak, to be able to take on human form for longer and longer times. So the system is sort of to say, like, kind of like an omniscient, an omnipresence, not quite a godlike deity. Most of the time they're not really given a personality. You can argue them to be the hand of the author. It can be seen as sort of a deus ex machina to keep the plot moving. But the system, for the most part, as I've seen it, is never really treated as not quite a non-character, but also not quite more than a plot device to keep the story moving. But they can cause different hindrances to the main character. For example, if I remember correctly, in Scum Villain's self-saving system, there is a point award system, but there's also a point reduction system that Shen Qingqiu has to manage, or else if his points get low, he can die, I think. So the system or the system types can be an obstacle for the main character, as well as the encouragement to keep the plot moving. It really just depends on how the story goes about it. So far, I haven't really seen a system trope that was too ham-fisted. Luckily, with most of the Danmei stories that I've read with a system character in it, they seem to just kind of make it either like playful banter, not overly used to the point of deus ex machina, but also not completely unfunctioning to the point where like nothing happens. So before I keep over explaining on what the system trope is, I wrote down a lot of things that I thought would be really cool to talk about. Oh, my mouse power is dying, whoops. So a couple of like expressions that I've been seeing a lot in various Danmei novels, such as the expression like drinking vinegar is used to express jealousy. And I heard that the expression drinking vinegar comes from, I forgot which dynasty it was, but there was an old story of an emperor wanting to gift a concubine to one of his like generals, one of his ministers. Concubines were very common back in the day, but the minister's wife, his common law wife, was like, I don't want my husband to have a concubine. And she said, like, literally, like, if you give my husband a concubine, I will literally drink poison to kill myself. And the emperor's like, would you do that? And she's like, what? It's like, here, you said like you would rather die than you have your husband get a concubine, so like here, like to test her loyalty. But she drinks it, and turns out it was just vinegar. So honestly, like, that story is a little bit like kind of funny, kind of sad, because like this is a poor woman who doesn't want her husband to have a mistress, and the emperor is like, I'll test your loyalty, and she's like, yeah, for my man, I'll do it. Drinking vinegar, less so as an expression for loyalty and more so as an expression for jealousy. I don't even know, but drinking vinegar has become like the Chinese expression for jealousy, and that's the story behind it. This other motorcycle is homophobic, oh my god. I did go on a bit of a deep dive for the expression salted fish, because there is a Danmei novel coming out, I forgot when, I think it's either later in the summer or in the fall, called Thrice Married to a Salted Fish. It is about, I believe, a man who gets married to a disabled man in a wheelchair. So salted fish has multiple meanings to my research. It can be used to describe someone who is like immobile, disabled, but also used to describe someone who is lazy, but also described as someone who just generally doesn't want to do anything or is exhausted by the world. We have been seeing this a lot quite in modern China, not in regards to being lazy per se, but more so in regards to like just general exhaustion from life itself. I think in connection with like the lying flat movement, I believe it's called, where like we're done with work, what are we working for, like 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, like 365 days a year working, like lie flat, we're done. And salted fish is because like the salted fish is the one that's like lying there and getting grilled. I believe it has origins in Cantonese language, but anyway, there's like multiple meanings to salted fish, but I thought it was really funny to talk about. As well as like, I feel like some Chinese expressions can be easily imagined and like understood through a Western lens, such as like the expression hugging thighs, like is used to describe like someone someone who's like begging and crying and like kneeling in front of the person they're begging to and like hugging their thighs, or is someone who's a little bit like a gopher, but basically like kneeling and crying and like groveling to like a person of higher stature. But like hugging thighs, like we don't really have that expression in English or like in America or in the West, but like you can kind of guess, like from context perhaps in the story itself, like you can guess like what hugging thighs means. So some of them are like that, for example. Also like thick face versus thin face. I feel like we have something similar where we talk about having thick skin, someone who is like, who can handle criticism, who doesn't show emotion very well, but we don't really have like quite the same thing for someone with a thin face. So someone with a thin face is someone who doesn't handle criticism very well, has very thin skin, can cry very easily. So basically the opposite of thick skin, but we call it the face. Also, I wanted to talk about like the concept of like saving face. That's very common in not just Chinese culture, but in other East Asian and Asian cultures as well, just under different names. The concept of saving face in China, I personally find it like, even though like my mom's never really talked about it with me, it's something that I've always understood intrinsically as I was growing up. It's like your reputation, like having a good face, like saving face is like maintaining reputation. But in a way, it's like in China, it's a little bit more extreme than that. It's also like the way that people treat you in respectable society, like giving you respect in case like you've done something bad or you're trying to hide something. Then like the people who are saving face or helping you save face is the people who want to help you or are respecting your secrets and like maintaining the reputation of not just you, but like, you know, China, it's a community first priority. So it's not just your own face, but also like everything that you do also reflects back on your family. Having good face reflects back on your families. And so other people who want to like save some face, or the people around you, like understanding that you want to maintain the good reputation of your family. And like it all goes back to parents and children and grandparents as well. So like saving face is like, again, like a community first approach to reputation and like the greater concept of reputation. And it's reputation that's not easily restored once lost. So, and saving face, I feel like, is something that can easily be picked up upon when reading these Chinese novels, because it is about like in-character interactions, like someone who's calling you out, like, can't you save some face for me? Like in the context of that, like you can understand that like it's about the character's reputation. It's about like how word of them will spread about if something gets out. Also, I want to really touch upon here. Oh, I forgot to write this down, but like in my notes, I talk about dual cultivation. Thinking about that, I totally forgot like talking about the concept of swarm brothers. These sirens and these construction workers are being so homophobic right now. I'm going to talk anyway. Basically, dual cultivation is like code for sex, but I wanted to touch upon swarm brothers. So swarm brothers, I feel like I've heard a lot of like discussion about it, especially in the Genshin community when we talk about, because Genshin is a Chinese game, when we talk about the characters of Kaya and Diluc. In the Chinese translated text, they're described as swarm brothers, but people have taken that to mean that they are literally brothers, in which they are not. They are like adopted brothers raised together. But swarm brothers is not just a Chinese fantasy trope, it's also true to life as well, in which to me it's more akin or aligns with like a knight's brotherhood in like a European lens, I guess you can say. Like knights in a brotherhood or like warriors in a brotherhood aren't literally brothers. It's a swarm brotherhood, sort of like a fraternity. So I never really understood like why swarm brothers is seen as like an incest thing. Because to me, sworn brothers, like, you know, like when you pinky promise with your friends that you'll always be like sisters, that that this is your homie, that this is your bro, but like in a more so like in a fraternal way, like a fraternity type of way. Particularly with Diluc and Kaya, they were both like knights of the Favonius Order in Genshin Impact the game. And you can see like swarm brothers as well, and particularly the most famous example I can give is Grandmaster of Demonic Cultivation, in which three of the most important characters are a throuple. All three of them are swarm brothers together, and it is taken very seriously to the point where like they're basically like uncles to Jinling, and there's serious consequences to be had when Jinling's uncle kills Jinling's uncle, and then it's like even more heartbreaking when Jinling's uncle finds out that Jinling's uncle killed Jinling's uncle. It's gonna be a joke forever. We talk about all of Jinling's uncles. He has way too many. It is perhaps like taken more seriously than like a fraternity, especially like in a modern fraternity. It's taken very seriously to the point like family, but not literally blood related family. I guess people still like have like gripes when it comes to step siblings incest, so to speak. I personally don't care. To me, like swarm brotherhood is more so like we're homies type of way, but in like a medieval fantasy type of way. To me, they're more like knights, a knight's brotherhood, a warrior's brotherhood, than like step siblings, bro. But if you want to learn more about like Swarm Brotherhood, there's a really cool video by I think the channel was called Cool History Bros. I'll link that down below. But to round this out, I want to talk about a couple of Danmei novels that have come out recently. In my previous video, I talked about Ballad of Sword and Wine. I have the second volume here that I borrowed from my friend, as well as this one I did talk about in the last Danmei video that I did. It is out now. I believe volume 4 is coming out soon. Case File Compendium, and this is one of the few Danmei novels that aren't a fantasy novel. So if you're not really fantasy girly, that's not quite your vibe, then definitely Case File Compendium is more so a science fiction leaning thriller contemporary work. We also have this one that came out quite recently called Run Wild by Sa Ye. This one is a contemporary coming of age in which a young man is kicked out of his home and goes back to his hometown. This one as well I was interested in, most because the cover is really cute, called River Bay Road Men's Dormitory, in which a movie director wants to write the next best novel but realizes that having been famous for so long as a movie director, he's forgotten what it's like to live as a normal person, so he rents out his enormous mansion's rooms to various gay men living in China to interact with them and get material for his novel. So this is sort of like a anthology, maybe not quite anthology, but like basically like the lives of various men living in modern China. And this one as well, this one has been out for a long time now. I don't remember if it's all of the novels have completely translated, but this is one of the examples of a not quite fantasy work. This has been listed more so as steampunk, and like a big aspect of this is like the machinery that they make here. This one's called Stars of Chaos by Priest. Priest has done a bajillion Danmei works such as Guardian, and was also the writer of Faraway Wanderers, which was the inspiration of basically perhaps the last Danmei live action drama that we'll ever get. Yeah, which is honestly such a huge shame. Like ever since like Danmei got really popular, especially during the pandemic, we got The Untamed, we got Word of Honor, and then we were also filming this one here I have in the back, Immortality, which is based off which is based off Arha the Husky and his white cat Shirtsun. That one has been delayed indefinitely. We also have, what was it called? We also have the one that was based off of Heaven Official's Blessing. I believe it was called something along the lines of Undying Faith or Eternal Faith. That one has, we've gotten like confirmation that these have been filmed. There's been like occasional leaks, occasional images come out from the production, but so far it's been delayed indefinitely. It's really like honestly such a shame that these authors are being like silenced, that these authors feel like that they have to hide, that they have to stop writing. And so like the only thing I can say for sure is to try and support the authors whenever you can. It's a miracle that we're even able to get these traditionally published here in the States, here in the West. So honestly, if you're able to, please support these authors whenever you can. Most of them are coming out of Seven Seas Entertainment. Seven Seas mostly selects novels that are popular on this one particular site that has a really long name, but is the most popular web novel site in China. If you're interested in checking out these novels firsthand from the source, there are sources that teach you how to navigate this site. It is going to be in Chinese. There is a payment system involving coins, similar to Legend or Webtoons if you're similar with that. But what's interesting about Seven Seas is that how they decide which Danmei to choose next is actually via survey. So apparently, I think it's like every month or so, Seven Seas puts out a survey on, hey, which one should we pick up next? Which one should we translate next? And what's really cool, again, I think I mentioned this in my last video as well, is that if there is a fan translation already, then they will rehire, I guess it's not rehiring if the translators did it already for free, but they will hire the fan translators to basically come on board for the official translation. Every once in a while there's like some hubbub about like a translation error or a translation discourse, I hate to say, but I think it's really cool that they're able to basically acknowledge like fan translators' work, because they all do it for free if you really think about it, because they can't make money off of this because it's not their work, but they're able to translate it for us. It gets popular, it gets traditionally translated, the survey shows that like it's popular. Because there are, for example, I did read on Danmei Reddit that there are some novels out there that are long, like they have to try and balance like the length of the novel or the series, the length of the series versus how popular it's going to be here for English speaking audiences. Like for example, I heard that Disabled Tyrant's Pet Fish isn't actually very popular in China, but there is a fairly strong English speaking audience over here, plus the novels series is only like 4 volumes long, so they're able to take a gamble on translating the work, printing the work, and like investing a lot of money to hope that it does well, and it's only 4 volumes long, versus like other Danmei series out there, they're a lot longer, there isn't a super strong audience for English speakers. Again, they're bringing this over to English, an English speaking audience, so they have to try and weigh like, how much money are we going to sink into this, how much are we going to invest in this, can we make our money back essentially if we bring this over to the US, to the West. You know, I surely do hope that like lots of Danmei novels get their shot in the spotlight. I'll leave that here. Kiss your fandom friends goodnight, and I will see you in the next one. And if the next one is what I'm planning the next one to be, it's gonna be a doozy. It's gonna be I'll just tell you this right now, it's a book. It's gonna be a book review, hopefully. I'm not even 100 pages in right now and I want to give up. But that is the life of being a booktuber. So once again, kiss your fan and friends goodnight. Read your Danmei and support your Danmei authors, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!